Welcome to Stream of Conscience, brought to you by Democracy for America, Fairfield County, where we believe that change is possible and you can make it happen. I'm your host, John Hartwell. Our guest today is Claire Gold, former Superintendent of Schools in Westport and the godmother of the magnet school movement in Connecticut. She began her career as a school psychologist and worked her way to the top of one of the best school systems in the country, serving first as assistant superintendent and then as superintendent during the turbulent years of Project Concern, when over 100 kids from Bridgeport were integrated into the Westport schools. Claire stepped down in Westport in 1988, after only 7 years, due to her husband's declining health. But her concern for quality education in our most disadvantaged schools didn't retire with her. She's devoted her tremendous energies to improving schools in Bridgeport and has been deeply involved in securing over $150 million in grants to build and open magnet schools that draw from surrounding towns as well. Claire, welcome to Stream of Conscience.
Hello, happy to be here.
You were in the Westport school system for many, many years, and during that time you were in charge during Project Concern, which brought a lot of kids from Bridgeport and was initially, I think, a very controversial project.
Extremely.
Can you talk about that time?
Very, very difficult time. The Board of Ed in Westport was really very courageous in approving the program. They were under tremendous pressure. I recall walking into the auditorium during a board hearing, and there were John Birch Society people from communities all over Fairfield County that were picketing in front of the building. Several of us found rats in our mailboxes. Wow. And it was very, very difficult. And the chairman of the board at that time, Joan Shine, almost was recalled. They started a recall movement, right, which went nowhere. But
she was threatened as well.
Oh, threatened. Very, very, very difficult time. But it was worth it. I think what was hard was, I think Westport was the first community to enter into that agreement with Bridgeport. And
exactly what was Project Concern?
Parents in Bridgeport were given an opportunity to apply to have their children attend the Westport schools. And that was essentially done by lottery as well. There were no admissions requirements at all. And we tried as much as possible, and I think probably 95% of the time we were able to take kindergarten children. We really wanted them to have the complete Westport experience. And I believe very, very deeply in the importance of early childhood education.
Of course.
So whenever a youngster graduated from the high school, we then replaced that student with someone at the kindergarten level.
And Bridgeport paid for all the costs?
There was a lot of federal money and Bridgeport money, primarily federal money.
Okay.
And that became a very difficult issue because eventually the federal government reneged on the money.
That would have been during the Reagan years.
Yeah, and the Board of Ed debated long and hard about whether or not the program should be continued. But we managed to have it go on. Yeah.
And how many children were involved at any one time?
Between 100 and 125.
Okay, so it was a significant presence of Bridgeport kids in the Westport schools.
Very much so, and but it was a very difficult adjustment all around. The principals and the teachers were not accustomed to children from the city, and I remember principals calling and saying, "Well, this little boy, second grader, hit another child getting on the bus." And it took me a while to kind of create an understanding that some of the kids express themselves physically, right, and the Westport kids had very bad mouths and express themselves verbally, just as nasty, if you believe me. So, you know, it was a question of accommodation both ways.
Okay. So I assume that was your first real experience with the kids from the inner city schools. Is that right?
Yes, it was. Although I grew up in a very, very mixed race, mixed economic community, Hoboken, New Jersey. Oh. So I was certainly accustomed, if not to a big racial difference, certainly a great variety of nationalities and languages.
So in 1988, you stepped down from the Westport school system. Your husband was ill at the time, and you wanted to focus on him. And you actually moved out of Westport. Well, you hadn't been living in Westport. I hadn't been living there. But you actually withdrew from the community, and you subsequently moved up to Easton. But then you decided to get involved in the Bridgeport school system. How did that decision come about?
Well, when I left Westport, I did a number of different things. I was an interim superintendent up in Weston 2 different times. I had my own consulting firm, and we did work in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Westchester, in all areas, special education, regionalization, many different areas. And at one point, I just did a little soul searching. And I thought, well, you know, I maybe have 10 or 20 years of my life left, and what am I going to do with them? And I wanted to do something substantial and something meaningful that fit in with who I was as a person.
And so you focused on the Bridgeport schools. Yeah. What did you do first?
Well, first thing, I heard that there were funds available at the state level for desegregation. And the first thing that I did was to develop arts programs in the summer that were open to Bridgeport children and suburban children. It was middle school age. And it was a lot of fun. We brought in artists from Manhattan, a lot of them practicing artists. It was residential. We leased dormitory space at Sacred Heart, and 1 year at University of Bridgeport.
For the students as well as? Or
for the students, oh wow, yeah.
Okay.
And matter of fact, I lived in with the students when we did that. And I always laugh when I think about it, because they thought I was a very, very plain kind of sparrow, not very attractive person. And they were always doing my makeup and fixing my hair and trying to spruce me up. But that kept them very entertained in the evening. But it worked out very, very well. And it was from there that I began to think, well, summer program's a great thing, but I wanted to do something on a larger scale. And did some research and found that there was money for magnet schools, and started to look around at what the needs were. As a matter of fact, went out to a number of businesses and corporations to try to find out what their workers might be looking for. And one of the things that became amply clear was that there was really a dearth of opportunity for childcare, that working mothers were really hurting.
Right.
So that's how I started to think about having a school that opened early in the day, closed late in the day, to accommodate a normal 8-hour work schedule.
Now, you mentioned magnet school, and there's also, at the same time, today there's a movement for charter schools. Could you very quickly sort of set the ground? What's the difference between a magnet school and a charter school?
Magnet school, to begin with, is operated under the aegis of a board of education. The charter schools are really independent schools. Right. The funding is very, very different. The state pays for the construction or remodeling of a magnet school. They do not pay for the construction of a facility for a charter school. The charter schools have more per pupil funding than the magnets. Okay. I think it's probably about $10,000 now.
Differential?
No, $10,000 overall. The magnet schools reimbursement is much lower. Okay. And it makes sense. Right. Since they pay for the building, they're not going to pay totally for the students.
What does the word magnet actually mean in this situation?
I think it originated as a draw. You know, what's going to pull people together. And if you look around the country, the magnet schools tend to be thematic. They might focus on the arts, on science, on music, multicultural. So that's the notion of magnet. Now, some of the charter schools also specialize in a particular theme.
And magnet schools draw from many different school districts.
As many as you want. Right. In other words, a state has no requirement for the number of districts. So they're all different. I would say most draw at least from 3 or 4.
And so that's completely different from your standard school, which has a very clearly defined geography, and everybody who belongs in that geography goes to that school, and that's the end of it. But a magnet school entices kids to come from a variety of districts, and so that allows you at the same time to have a greater mixture of students.
Matter of fact, the magnet school movement in Connecticut rose out of the Chef O'Neill case, which was really attempting to deal with the racial isolation in the big cities. And this was an attempt to really desegregate and really get away from not only African American isolation, but people forget about white isolation and how insidious that can be too.
Right. So a magnet school is a primary tool in some cases for desegregation, and it's also a tool for bringing kids together who share common interests from a variety of economic and social backgrounds.
Correct.
So your first school focused on the fact that working mothers needed childcare.
Yeah, it was a strange school in that it's one of the few that was not thematic.
Well, the theme was childcare.
Yeah, I mean, but not thematic in terms of a subject area.
Right.
We wanted to provide for the children of working parents, and we wanted to provide a high quality education as well.
Yeah.
And the 6 to 6, the name of it, came from the fact that our largest client actually was Bridgeport Hospital. Bridgeport Hospital is the largest employer in the city of Bridgeport.
Right.
And nurses particularly start at 7 in the morning. So we wanted to be open from 6 on. Now, of course,
so from 6 in the morning until 6 in the evening.
Yeah. Now those, the early time and the late time of the day are both flexible. So there are parents who indeed come at 6:30, and there are others who come at 8:30, depending on their work schedule. And similarly, they pick up their children at different hours at the end of the day.
So that school is here in Bridgeport.
Yes.
And it's still open.
Yes.
How many students?
They probably have about 400 students now.
And it covers what grades?
That's a pre-K through 8.
Okay.
We opened with an elementary, and a couple of years after it was operating, they added the middle school grades.
Now, how did you get that program up and running? Because this is really, you were basically out there fighting to get this done.
With much difficulty.
Right.
It was a concept that seemed to be alien, particularly to Bridgeport. My struggle was not so much with the suburbs, as some might think, but Bridgeport was just not accustomed to it. They, I think, failed to see the potential in it. So it just took a lot of salesmanship, a lot of board meetings explaining what it was, what the funding was, trying to persuade them that indeed these children would end up with more dollars behind each child than a regular Bridgeport student, and trying to sell the value of diversity. And
where was the funding coming from?
Well, the funding was all state. The magnet schools, up until very recently, have been 95%. The construction has been 95% reimbursed.
So you went to the Bridgeport Board of Education and said, look, there's this money available from the state, 95% of the funding for construction of this school. There's a need for working women to have a school system that takes care of their kids more than simply during the normal school day. And they were saying, well, we're not so sure. That's right.
No, it's interesting. People are not aware of how fragmented the lives of families become. Many of the women that I'd spoken with in researching for this had daycare facilities they were using, after-school facilities. Grandmothers were doing a yeoman's job. So they were all over the place.
And sometimes older kids have to stay home with younger kids if they're sick, because a single mom has to go off to work, or otherwise they won't be able to pay the rent and eat.
So basically, I should add to this that in working on this, it's been about 14 years now that I've been working on magnet schools. I've worked with 4 different superintendents, and it's been a little difficult every time there's a shift.
Sure.
There's kind of a period of re-education or re-salesmanship, whatever you want to call it.
You have to educate the superintendent.
It's difficult.
Right.
But when we got the...
They should be able to learn, though, pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, the money is very attractive.
Yeah.
Bridgeport's a very poor city.
It is.
And unable to put up handsome new buildings
Right.
on its own.
Right.
So it was that reimbursement was what was most attractive.
So you opened the first one when?
Oh goodness, it's about 13 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that one was up for a while, and then you decided to do another one.
Well, you see, I was very foolish. I thought that once I did that it would serve as a template for
and
other schools.
everybody would say, oh, what a great idea,
Oh,
let's do some more.
This is terrific. We can build some new schools, we can refurbish, we can do all kinds of wonderful things. And nothing happened. Nothing happened.
It's hard to believe.
So, you know, I did my other things, and then one of the ideas I'd had when I did the 6 to 6, I had thought of putting it here on this site at Discovery.
Okay.
Because I thought it was such a wonderful opportunity being close to the Science Museum. And for a whole host of reasons that there was no way that I was going to get approval to use the land here. But it was always in the back of my mind. I mean, I kind of have always had a storehouse of things that I want to do, and sometimes they come together 10 years later, sometimes they don't. But when nothing happened, and over a 10-year period, you know, and nobody raised a finger to add any more, I started thinking again about this site. And the first thing I did was to meet with the superintendent of schools in Bridgeport, was Sonia Salcedo at that time, and with the director of the museum, and with the folks at Sacred Heart, because they have a very significant teacher preparation program, and I thought this would be a terrific partnership for them, and at least receive blessings to go ahead and explore.
And we should say that we're sitting today in the Discovery School, which is built next door to the Discovery Museum, and it's right down the street from Sacred Heart University in Bridgeport on Park Avenue. So. And that's why we're actually sitting in a science classroom in the Discovery School. So how did this school get built?
Well, again, with much difficulty. You cannot imagine. I can't even remember the number of committees and council meetings and Board of Ed meetings that I went to. I mean, I had to go out and persuade suburban superintendents, that this was a good thing to do. I'm
sorry, what is the hard sell with a suburban superintendent? Because you're building the school in Bridgeport. It's a magnet school that their kids can come to if they choose and if they pass whatever they need to do to get in. So what's the problem?
To begin with, we have very good suburban schools in the area.
Yes.
And they couldn't believe that any of the families would want to send their children to school in Bridgeport.
I see. So why would I want one of my kids to go from Weston or from Trumbull or from Westport or Fairfield and go to Bridgeport?
A lot of cynicism about that. Then Bridgeport had a kind of shaky reputation. They did not believe that it would not cost them money. There are 2 different kinds of magnet schools. Some of the magnet schools charge the districts on a per pupil basis, like about $4,000 a student, and the superintendents did not want to add that to their budgets. This, however, is something called a host magnet school, and we charge nothing for either transportation or tuition, nothing. So that was a good selling point. But then the superintendents had to bring this to each of their boards for approval. So we went through that process. Then we had to persuade the Bridgeport delegation. I mean, ultimately, These schools need legislative action to be bonded.
So you needed to talk to the state senators and the state representatives
All
from Bridgeport and
yes.
from the surrounding towns that
Yes.
were going to be involved to get the state legislature to come up with the money.
And
the governor.
Yes, and the Bridgeport delegation particularly was not a cohesive group at that point. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they have trouble zeroing in on one agenda. Mm. But we did, and we actually rented a van, little bus, and went up to Hartford one day and met with other legislators because we had to get the majority of the votes, met with the governor.
And this was this Governor Rell or Governor? It must have been.
It was before.
Governor Rowland.
Yeah, it was Governor Rowland.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Oh yeah, it goes by. This has been a very long haul.
Yeah.
Very, very long. I mean, I started the discussions in 2004. We put the grant together, wrote the grant in 2005. Mm-hmm. Received the money in 2005.
Well, that was good.
Yeah, that worked well, but then there were a lot of other mountains to climb after that.
So you've built a school here, and it's a science-oriented school. How many kids are going to be here? What grade levels?
We start with 3-year-olds. We have 2 years of preschool.
Wow.
Because of my deep belief that we can't get to the children young enough.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it starts with 3-year-olds, and it will run up through 8th grade. And we'll have 500 students here.
And where are you now in that progress?
We have the 3-year-olds through grade 3.
Okay.
And we have 6th grade. We started the middle school grades.
Okay, and so you're going to add a grade every year?
More than that. Next year we'll have everything but 8th.
Okay.
We're adding 4, 5, and 7 next year.
And how many of the students come from Bridgeport and how many come from the surrounding towns?
The division is 70% Bridgeport and 30% suburban.
Okay.
And that was another point of contention, particularly with the Bridgeport board.
Really?
Well, they wanted a higher percentage of Bridgeport children.
Now that you've done this for them, they would like to have more.
Yeah, they wanted more, and I understand that in a way. I mean, they wanted something nice for their kids, but then it defeats the whole notion of integration.
Of course.
So, anyway, we ended up at 70-30.
Are you having any difficulty enticing kids to come from the surrounding towns?
No, it's been just a wonderful surprise for me. We've had. When we opened, well, we had a lot of problems. The building was not ready. This was last year. We leased space in a religious school in Fairfield. We had difficulty getting the Board of Ed to approve money to lease the space.
Sure.
And, I tried to say, these children will only be 4 years old once. They're going to lose, some group of kids going to lose a year. So we were there in the religious school for half a year, and then here for half a year, and this year, of course, we're here full time. So we have had that put a little damper on recruitment, but we had no money for advertising or anything like that. But it's not been difficult. It's just we filled our suburban quota for the current year, and for next year we had just a little bit under 500 applications from the suburbs.
For how many spaces?
For about 120. Yeah.
So obviously it's attractive.
It's very attractive. We have a waiting list from all of the suburbs for almost all the grades. Wow. Yeah.
So 2 schools, one a science school, one to support working mothers. But you're not stopped yet. You're not finished.
Well, I guess one day it occurred to me that I had killed myself trying to get this off the ground. We were going to have wonderful kids come out of here in 8th grade, and then where were they going to go? And I became quite distressed. I need a high school.
Right.
And, you know, there have been issues with the Bridgeport high schools.
Certainly.
And so I thought, well, I guess we do a high school. And
Okay.
that's what we did. We did a high school. And
Tell us about that.
well, a couple of things I would say about it. It's really, I think of the present time as almost a repeat of the Sputnik days, with the tremendous interest in science again. Looked, of course, at where the United States stands relative to other countries in science and math achievement. We're not doing too well.
You know, I hear 32nd in the world in math, or some dismal number like that.
It's just it's inexcusable.
It's inexcusable, you're right.
So I thought, well, and it happens, I happen to love science myself. So I thought, well, let's do a science, math, technology school, certainly technology. That's where it's at. And happily, we have seen tremendous innovations in technology that don't require a lot of investment in money. You need some smart people to get together, and they seem to be able to develop these applications that are phenomenal. So that became the theme. Then the other issue, of course, was desegregation, bringing together the communities. And I guess third, I love giving parents choice, the opportunity to choose where their kids go to school. Sure. And I felt that feeling runs way back to my time in Westport. Middle class and wealthy parents have always had a choice.
Yes.
They choose private school, they choose suburban schools.
They choose to live in Westport.
Choose to live in Westport.
In Norwalk or in
They've
Bridgeport.
made their choice, and nobody else has choice.
Right.
And I thought that it was an enormous injustice. So.
But this school, this third school, which is now just in the construction process, there was also another political fight around that. Can you talk about that?
Well, there were a number of issues. There have always, with both schools, Discovery and the new school, been environmental issues. People very concerned about taking down trees.
Of course.
Wetlands, destruction of wetlands. No, they're really legitimate and important issues. On the other hand, the land here and the land where the school's being built, the high school, were not being used well at all. They were really kind of community dumps, frankly, with old refrigerators and tires and that kind of thing. Then the land happened to be, it was state land that was located within the boundary of Trumbull, which meant that we had to go through the Trumbull boards for approval. Now, you have to know that the Trumbull Board of Education had approved the project way back in 2005. But we then went to inland wetland when we received the money, by the way, $135 million project. When we received that, we started looking for land. And Bridgeport has very little usable land. A lot of it was an industrial town, a lot of it's polluted. I wanted the kids not only in a nice natural environment for science study, but we could not get into the issue of cleaning up pollution. There's very little money available for that. And I also needed an attractive environment to get suburban families to commit to send their children. Most of them are not going to send their kids into, deep into an urban setting that may be very run down. So anyway, we went to the Trumbull Inland Wetland and had many meetings with them, had many of our own environmental engineers in, their environmental engineers in, guaranteed that we would mitigate any wetlands that we disturbed, and we gained unanimous approval from the Trumbull Inland Wetlands. And a foolish person that I am, I thought we're going to sail now, but we didn't. We got to the Planning and Zoning Commission, had many, many hearings, and they actually never took a vote.
Never took a vote.
Never took a vote. I thought, you know, with the inland wetland, that's really the technical board.
So you had the Board of Ed on your side.
Board of Ed.
You had the inland wetland.
Yeah.
You had money from the state.
Money from the state.
You were going to provide a lot of places for kids from Trumbull.
Yes.
But somehow the project came to a halt.
Came to a halt. We had many hearings and they never voted, and we were always facing a postponement, one more postponement after another. And it became pretty clear that the political machinery was really preventing the planning and zoning from voting, because as I spoke to individual members from planning and zoning, they were gung-ho, and you know, they'd say things like, well, you know, if you could take more Trumbull students, maybe we can work this out. And I knocked myself out with the State Department people and got them to agree to take an extra 100 students.
100, wow.
100, and they were already allocated 50. An extra 100. We guaranteed that we would buy a brand new gorgeous fire engine, and you know, they run, being on the Board of Finance in Easton, I know they run about $750,000 to get a fire engine.
Yep.
We were going to improve the sewage disposal. We were going to repave Old Town Road, which is a major artery. We were ready to really basically do about $4 million worth of improvements. For Trumbull. For Trumbull.
Just to get them to have a vote.
That's right.
And they didn't.
And they didn't.
And so what did you do?
So by that time, you know, I was working closely with Bill Finch. You know, this had started under John Fabrizi, and then Bill Finch came in. He's the mayor in Bridgeport. And Governor Malloy was elected.
Right.
And Bill and the local legislators, also Trumbull legislators, went to Malloy and talked about moving the boundary. It happens to be that the land belongs to the state. That was what was a little so odd about it. It was not Trumbull land.
It was inside the border of Trumbull, but it was
state land.
And also just on the border with Bridgeport.
Exactly. And which made it a wonderful location, aside from its proximity to Beardsley Park, and Beardsley is a key partner with us. And they worked out through a lot of bargaining sessions. Matter of fact, the first selectman of Trumbull was up there and you know, continued to make financial demands on the state, and just came up with the notion of, let's just change the border, change the boundary.
Take it away from Trumbull, give it to Bridgeport.
And this, I think, is really almost unprecedented. I think it's the third time in Connecticut history that a city boundary was changed. And guess what? Had a unanimous vote from the legislature, unanimous vote.
So now the school is approved, and you're going forward. You're in the middle of construction.
Yes.
When's it going to open?
It will be ready for students September 2013.
Wow.
It's really been on the fast track in terms of construction, and we were blessed with a wonderful winter last year.
Yes, we were. Yeah, for construction, yes.
And Fusco Corporation has done a terrific job. They've put on a lot of extra help. There are sometimes 200 people working up there.
Wow. And
I might say, as you know, a footnote, that it has offered terrific employment opportunities for the local construction workers.
Absolutely.
And I thought, matter of fact, a lot of the union leadership, carpenters, electricians, and so forth, they came to planning and zoning meetings just to plead, you know, we need the work. This is a $130 million project. Let's do this. So we're absolutely on schedule, going well, and it was thrilling this week. We topped the building with a nice steel beam, and we'll be ready to go. But meanwhile, doing a tremendous amount of work and planning for the program.
Well, Claire, it's such a terrific story. You've not single-handedly, but been the spearhead on creating 3 new schools here in Bridgeport, or well, they're all now in Bridgeport. One was going to be in Trumbull, to serve a diverse population. You know, we've been wrestling in this country for many, many years with the problems of integration of school districts because, as you know, with the housing segregation that we have, with the city being primarily black and Hispanic and the suburbs being primarily white, the students never get together. But you're actually providing a new way to do this in a way that's not forcing people, but is in fact attracting people. And I think it's really terrific.
Well, it's been a wonderful experience. Been very difficult,
yeah.
Very frustrating.
Change is hard.
Shed a few tears along the way, but when I look at my lifespan and what I could have or might have done, frankly, I couldn't have spent my 70s in a better way than I have.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for your work and for sharing it with us. And it's really an exciting period for schools in Bridgeport.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed talking about it. Can talk about it forever.
Thank you. That's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. You can find all our shows on YouTube by going to youtube.com/user/DFATVNet. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. Or you can send comments or suggestions for a show to info@dfa-tv.net. If you'd like to learn more about progressive political action, we meet at 7 p.m. on the first Wednesday of the month at the Silver Star Diner in Norwalk. We'd love to have you join us. Remember, change is possible, and you can make it happen. This has been Stream of Conscience, and I'm your host, John Hartwell. Thanks for watching.